Good afternoon. First of all, we would like to thank you for trusting in us to perform a desktop review analysis of Lendlease Annual Report 2018 against the requirement of Integrated Reporting Framework. In order to present to you the main findings and recommendations of our work, here is the KPMG team which has developed this project. Lendlease Annual Report 2018 was issued in August of the same year and was prepared in accordance with the principles contained in the International Reporting Framework and related background papers issued by the International Integrated Reporting Council in preparing this framework. It's relevant to remember that integrated reporting is a process that promotes integrated thinking, breaks down silos within the businesses, encourages integrated decision making and management that focus on value creation in the short, medium and long term. Our findings, which are contained in this review analysis, reflect whether the application of the Integrated Reporting Framework principle-based minimum requirements, as well as an overall assessment on each of the guiding principles and content elements are effective, partially effective, or not effective. Our analysis is subjective view based on our interpretation of the Integrated Reporting Framework and observations made in our analysis. This report includes the following key components: an upfront snapshot view of the extent of Lendlease application of the minimum requirements of the Integrated Reporting Framework, principal findings on application of the content elements and guiding principles of the Integrated Reporting Framework, a summary of observations and recommendations arising from our review analysis of each of the guiding principles and content elements of the framework, a collection of better practice examples.
Analysis of the Lendlease report in relation against the IR framework indicates that they were in compliance against the requirements of what constitutes an IR, mainly a designated identifiable communication with reference to all requirements. Now, some of the key strengths of the report were in terms of strategic focus and future orientation. There was a clear articulation of the strategic approach being followed by encompassing the 5 pillars of value and integrating global trends in the economy to drive and influence the overall strategy of the firm. For conciseness, it was quite easy to follow through, and it's concise on an overall basis. Each of the sections are quite balanced in terms of text, tables, and the charts being used across the report on a very consistent basis. The information was presented across multiple dimensions and measures. For example, a group overview, operational and performance highlights, operational environment, geographical diversity, and diverse operational capability. The report also highlights the organization's leadership structure, disaggregating it further amongst skills, diversity, tenure, competence, and experience. The report does go further to include examples of the decision-making process for the investments, macroeconomic indicators, financial and commercial assessment, funding and development strategy, safety, sustainability issues, and overall key risks. Lendlease's business model adequately describes and demonstrates how the organization achieves its transformation of core inputs through its business activities of investments, development and construction into outputs and outcomes that aim to fulfill the organization's strategic purpose and create value over the short, medium, and long term. I'll now hand it over to Freya, Alice, Camille, and Sumit, who will take you through the various rooms for improvement within the Lendlease report in relation to the International Integrated Report Framework's respective guiding principles and content elements.
We are now going to outline the key sections of the Integrated Reporting Framework where we identified gaps, briefly describe these gaps, and provide our recommendations on how to address these. Firstly, responsibility for the Integrated Report. KPMG noted that the Framework Requirement 1.2, responsibility for the Integrated Report, was not effective. The Integrated Reporting Framework states that an integrated report should include a statement from those charged with governance that includes an acknowledgement of their responsibility to ensure the integrity of the integrated report, an acknowledgement that they have applied their collective mind to the preparation and presentation of the integrated report, their opinion or conclusion about whether the integrated report is presented in accordance with the framework, or if it does not include such a statement, it should explain what role those charged with governance played in its preparation and presentation, what steps are being taken to include such a statement in future reports, the time frame for doing so, which should be no longer than the organisation's 3rd integrated report that references this framework. KPMG noted that this is an easy gap to fix. To remediate this in the Lendlease integrated report, KPMG is recommending arrangements I mentioned previously. The second key gap noted by KPMG was in relation to the guiding principle of connectivity of information. The IR Framework Requirement 3.6 requires that a business adopts the integrated way of reporting should show a holistic picture of the combination and interrelatedness and dependencies between the factors that affect the organisation's ability to create value over time. KPMG observed that your 2018 integrated report only partially fulfilled this requirement. This report assimilates the various content elements to provide a holistic view of the interaction between the activities to some extent. Whilst the report includes some examples of this, there are gaps. The capitals linked to Lendlease's value-driving activities. However, interdependencies between the capitals and the cause and effect of the activities between the capitals need to be demonstrated.
The guiding principle of stakeholder relationships states that an integrated report should provide insights into the nature and quality of the organisation's relationships with its key stakeholders, including how and to what extent the organisation understands, takes into account and responds to their legitimate needs and interests. Upon reviewing the Lendlease Integrated Report for 2018, KPMG have concluded that your disclosure on stakeholders is limited. Whilst you state that the pillars of values and outcomes of capital are focused on the needs of your stakeholders, you fail to indicate how these needs and interests are incorporated and effectively achieved. In order to improve this disclosure, you must outline your key stakeholder groups, discussing your engagement mechanisms and how you have incorporated their needs and interests into your business model. As value is created through relationships with others, an important element for Lendlease is to disclose how you have used their pillars of values to satisfy the needs of your stakeholders. An integrated report must also disclose the guiding principle of materiality by reporting information about matters that substantially affect the organisation's ability to create value over the short, medium and long term. You have disclosed the process for determining and capturing material matters and have applied this within your report to an adequate standard. This has been achieved by first listing each of the key pillars of values and subsequently outlining the key material matters that affect each of these pillars. You can improve your disclosures on materiality by ensuring you connect each material issue with their relevant risks and opportunities important to the stakeholder. Whilst you have successfully outlined the key risks and opportunities for the business as a whole, there is limited consideration as to whether these key risks or opportunities are those that would be material to the stakeholders.
Thanks, Alice. The guiding principle of reliability and completeness states that an integrated report should include all material matters, both positive and negative, in a balanced way and without material error. With regards to reliability, it is evident that you have robust internal control and reporting systems overseen by the Risk and Audit Committee. The purpose of this committee is to assist the board in fulfilling its corporate governance and oversight responsibilities, and this is outlined on page 100. It is also clearly presented that the board has the ultimate responsibility for how the capitals, supported by governance and risk management, contribute to performance and drive the long-term value of the business. This is discussed on page 92 and 93. With respect to balance and completeness, it is not immediately obvious that you have given equal consideration to both increases and decreases in the capitals. You do discuss the losses suffered in the construction business on page 78, but it is not clear whether this was the only loss incurred during the reporting period. The content element of risks and opportunities states that an integrated report should answer the question, what are the specific risks and opportunities that affect the organisation's ability to create value over time, over the short, medium and long term, and how is the organisation dealing with them? Overall, your discussion and presentation of the risks and opportunities was considered reasonable. On page 69, the material risks faced by the business were outlined in detail, with reference to the relative pillars of value and the mitigating procedures in place. In relation to the opportunities, a selection of the key projects coming up was included, linking them with the discussions of the company's outlook in the short to medium term. To improve compliance with reliability and completeness and risks and opportunities, KPMG recommends that you should include further information regarding the nature of your opportunities, a discussion around the likelihood that your risks and opportunities will come to fruition, the magnitude of their impact and the associated time frame, for example, in short, medium and long term. I will now pass on to Sumit. Thank you.
I would like to discuss on two important content elements, strategy and resource allocation and outlook. In terms of strategy and resource allocation, the most important thing for an organization is to have a clear vision of its future objectives and what will be its strategies to achieve it. I believe Lendlease has done well in terms of defining its strategies and have also identified the future global trends which can have influence on it. However, the real missing part has been articulating its key priority areas and maybe further dividing into short, medium, and long term. Further, Lendlease can include a specific section or table and analyze if they have the required resources in terms of people, capital investment, and outline any challenges. Implant's platform Integrated Report has done exceptionally well on the above points, and it's clearly identified the focus areas for the company, its key strategies, actions taken, and short-term and long-range targets. Now, if we come to the next section on outlook, the most important thing to consider is what are the likely challenges and uncertainties to pursue the strategy, and what are its potential implications on business model and future performance. I believe Lendlease in its report has identified the global trends, and have talked more on the opportunity side and haven't really talked on the associated risk, which is quite important. With respect to outlook, Lendlease could benefit from further analysis of the risk and external, including breaking down risk into short-term, medium-term, and long-term goals, and a consideration of how the capital they rely on could be impacted, including availability, quality, and affordability across different time frames. That's it. I will hand over to Tina now. Thank you.
So, in summary, we think that Lendlease have, the integrated report is a strong document, but improvements can be made. So as a first step, we would recommend that you include a statement from the board where you take responsibility for the integrated reporting as required by the framework. This is a quite easy step to do. We would also recommend that you include a discussion on stakeholder relationships and how the stakeholder demands sort of interact with each other and need to be balanced, because that's something we saw that you definitely had a gap on. We would also recommend that you would break down your risks into short-term, medium-term, and long-term risks, and consideration for how those risks may impact the capitals. One way of also improving your risk assessment would be including a risk matrix, for example. And then, of course, if you have time and resources allow, we would recommend that you review the requirements for materiality, connectivity of information, reliability and completeness, as well as strategy and resource allocation. Some of those can be worked through as you work through those that we recommend as a first step, of course. And as we've also previously mentioned, we've included some best practice examples in the report, and we are of course also happy to assist you in this work going forward. And if you have no questions, I would also like to conclude this presentation by saying thank you for taking the time to meet with us today. And if you have any questions going forward, you'll find our contact details in the report. Thank you.